All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be adding in a few sort of breaks in John's voice in the music to really add sort of some tempo changes and a little bit more pacing and specific effects to the overall kind of video. So at the moment, we have our song underlaid underneath John's voice, which is fine. But there's a few times in the song and where he's speaking where I want a little bit of a pause where we can do something visual and play around with the music as well. So the beginning I think is fine. It starts off at good volume, a good pace, but we're just gonna have a little listen and see where we're gonna add a slight pause or a pacing break.
He lived in a shack that didn't even have an address. His father was a pig farmer, his mother brewed illegal liquor, they were broke, and son was bullied at school. At 16, he moved to California to make money.
I think I definitely want one at least where this changes, where the music changes, because at the moment it sounds really harsh, like it's a straight cut. So I think we're gonna add a little one in here. So what we're gonna do is make a cut to John's voice.
Yeah, to make money.
So I'm gonna cut it here just after he says money and move his voice down a little bit, but we need to make sure we move everything along with that and not just his voice. So we're gonna grab everything and just move it out the way for now whilst we play around with the song. So I quite like what the song does here anyway. There's like a natural like kind of click, but it still takes a bit too long to come into it. So we're gonna cut that part out. And then we're gonna add a little crossfade in here. So I'm gonna click here and click Control Shift D, or if you like, you can also double click, apply default transitions. So we're just gonna add a tiny crossfade. So that's gonna fade from one song to the next.
Make money.
So now what we need to do, because no one's talking at this point, the music needs to be a little bit louder here. So we're gonna, on this part of the song now, delete the effect that we added. So delete the parametric equalizer on there, that'll make it already a little bit louder. And we're gonna bring the overall volume back up so that now this is sitting to around about -6, -3, where John's voice normally would sit.
Money.
Okay, and this is obviously, this fade off at the moment is obviously really harsh. So we need to add another fade here. And I'm gonna make this one a nice long one. So that basically this is now fading from louder music to quieter music and back into where John's voice can come in.
Money.
So I think that's starting to sound good. And that gives us a bit of pacing to bring in the rest of John's voice and have him talking again. So I'm going to pull that in and place that just around where the edge of the fade is. So let's just have a little look at that. So we have a long period of John talking.
His mother brewed illegal liquor, they were broke, and son was bullied at school. At 16, he moved to California to make money. He invented a translation.
I'm going to do one more together because I know there's a big point and the music does drop. So
all time, he put 20 million into Alibaba, which returned $50 billion.
So where that music drops, I want that to kind of come after where he says 50 billion. So I'm going to cut here after he says dollars. So let's just pull these out the way. Perfect. And let's bring this in where it drops.
Which returned $50 billion.
So we can drag this out right until it drops, which is here. You can see on the waveform that the music gets louder there. So we're going to pull that into about here.
Which returned $50 billion.
And then get this drop ready here. Okay, and add a cut there. And we're going to fade between them. Let's go ahead and make this louder again. Let's delete the effect. Let's bring up the overall audio on it. And then I'm going to bring John's voice back in here. See how that sounds.
And yet, he decides who to invest in based on the look in someone's eyes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's looking good. What I'm going to do here then is extend this out again. So that's where I know I want the drop. We can even add a little marker there so I know that it's there. That's where I'm going to line it up to. And we need to make a cut so that the music can go back into this. Let's re-add the equalizer here so we can go back into that. So let's go paste that. So let's just listen to that a second instead.
Alibaba, which returned $50 billion.
Yeah, that's almost there. Let's this time bring the fade this way so it starts coming up earlier.
20 million into Alibaba, which returned $50 billion.
A little bit more this way. So it's quite trial and error a little bit, just like playing around with it.
Which returned $50 billion.
A little bit more.
$1 billion. And yet,
Yeah, that's cool. And a problem we have here, there's obviously a gap, which does work sometimes, but I don't think it quite works here. If we listen, it kind of just cuts out.
20 million into Alibaba, which returned $50 billion.
So yeah, we're just trying to find that sort of beat where we can fade between. So I've just been playing around with it a little bit. This was quite a tricky one because the beats are a little bit irregular. Sometimes with like, you know, more classical music or something that's like long, you can normally just add a long crossfade between them both and it's quite easy to fade from one to the next. But I've done a little fade here. You can probably hear it if I was to just play the music. So basically it's fading between the two here so that the timing later on becomes correct. So you can hear it a little bit there, but with John's voice on top, as I've hidden it under a bit where he's currently talking, so hopefully you can't quite hear it too well.
The US. But he promised his mum he'd return to Japan, so he went home and started a company called SoftBank. It was a big success.
I think that's quite, if you didn't know the music, that's fairly well hidden. Perfect, and then that allowed us to now create the timing that we want later on for this bit here.
Alibaba, which returned $50 billion. And yet, he decided who to invest.
Cool, so now we've added two sort of paused breaks in the music and it's allowed us to change the music and change the tempo each time. So there we go, we've structured the video. We know exactly where we're going to want all of our visuals. We've got the subtitles ready if we want them at a later date. And we've got all of the music and the audio in place. So we basically now have a structure of the whole video. So all we need to do now is start adding the photos, videos, animations, and just the visual element of the video for the most part, and then we'll add sound effects at a later date.